Welcome back to the channel. I'm Chase and this is All Things Random. Today we are talking about the Aventi A13, a new addition in Aventi's lineup. Now, I've done a few videos in the past about Aventi. I do own two Aventis, the Aventi A11, specifically the Producer Michael, which is the clear sapphire case with the black DLC dial. This thing is just amazing. I also own the Aventi A10 Medina Yellow. The Medina Yellow was the first one I ever did a review on. I will leave a link right up here, a card of both the A10 and the A11. I also did a video about their unique materials that they're really coming out with, and this is why I'm doing this video now. Now, they have come out with also not just the pure sapphire, not just the royal blue pure sapphire that has been discontinued, not just the Cerakoted finish A10s, which was the initial lineup of the watches they released, but they also did an REC Emerald watch, which is just awesome, and they also have some secret watches out there like the Ruby Red that, you just can't get your hands on at all, even if you wanted to. Now, they did release a new watch, the Aventi A13. Now, I've been watching the guys over at Aventi just sort of put some spoilers out there over the last year, and then finally they announced that they were releasing the A13, which was the Sapphire Skull. That is what we're talking about today. We're talking about the A13, the Sapphire Skull. Now, why am I talking about this? Well, Aventi is very unique and innovative when it comes to what they're doing. Now, they could easily have gone and produced a dive watch that looked like every other dive watch. They could have produced all these other things. Instead, what they did was they created a unique design and they ran with it. And everything from then has been pretty awesome. And they are creating some watches with some pretty cool materials. And the Aventi A13 is exactly that. It's a unique watch with unique materials, and you'd be pretty surprised at the price point. So let's talk about from the outside in when it comes to this watch. Well, the watch itself is a pure titanium watch made of grade 5 titanium, so it is extremely durable. Now, they come in two different variants. They come in the pure titanium, which is a very high polished, and honestly, I was looking at photographs of this thing and I was looking at videos of this thing, and this thing is just a shiner for sure. The second variant, which is the Tyamine, is in no way a shiner at all. It uses the same grade 5 titanium. However, it uses a special coating that they call their proprietary amorphous carbon formulation, whatever that means. Anyways, all I know is it has this very, very, very stealthy look. And the reason I like the Tyamine a lot better than the high polished titanium is that it comes with this awesome orange strap. Now, that strap just makes that watch pop like nothing else. Also, when it came down to money, and we'll talk turkey at the very end, honestly, the difference between the two is not very much at all in the watch world when it comes to pricing. Now, again, from the outside in. Now, this watch sits a lot smaller, or feels a lot smaller than the standard Aventi watch, and it comes in at 44 by 49 millimeters. Now, everybody I've talked to about this watch says that it does have a smaller profile on the wrist, so those who may have smaller wrists, everybody knows that the Aventi is a statement piece. You wear this watch because you want people to see it, you want people to be like, hey, what's that on your wrist? The A13 is in no way not a looker on the wrist, but it does wear slightly smaller. So for those who have been out there and saying, hey, the watch is just too big for me, well, the A13 is slightly smaller, wears slightly smaller, so something to consider. Okay, now as we look deeper into the watch, again from the outside in, of course, this thing has a sapphire crystal over everything. In no way did they ever skimp on this watch at all. But as we go from the outside in, it does have a sapphire crystal covering the dial. The dial, though, is what is special about this watch. Now, they use sapphire hands, and those sapphire hands are there so that you can see through the hands, and no way are they impeding the vision of that sapphire skull. back to the hands for just a moment. Now they do use sapphire crystal to create the hands, and on the outside they use blackened Swiss lume, which actually looks pretty cool at night. They use the same type of lume around the Sapphire Skull, which gives it a really, really, really cool night glow that honestly I find extremely appealing and extremely attractive. Now the Sapphire Skull itself, now they could have cheapened out and they could have easily gone with 2 pieces of sapphire. They could have created the upper part of the skull and then the lower mandible or the jaw. Instead, they said, you know what, we're gonna make it extremely difficult on ourselves and we're gonna do one single piece of sapphire. Now this watch is very reminiscent of something like a Richard Mille. Now the Richard Mille RM052 skull honestly uses like a titanium skull, and that watch with a Swiss tourbillon, right? Because we're talking about Swiss tourbillons. This watch is a Swiss tourbillon. It's full Swiss, and we're talking about the difference between an RM052. It's like over 500,000 if you could even find one, and upwards to over 1 million. So you're talking about a skull made of pure sapphire instead of titanium with a Swiss tourbillon, and we'll get into the Swiss movement and how maybe it's comparative to an RM052 in just a minute. However, back to the skull. The skull is extremely unique, and like I said, they did it out of a single piece of sapphire. Now, this thing has 160 facets, 200 edges, and the way it's designed is if they mess up at all, like I think the tolerance is 0.03 millimeters or 0.3 millimeters, whatever the thickness of a hair is. If the tolerances are so thin that if there is a single flaw or a single mistake, they have to start all over again, and that it is no way a easy process to create one of these sapphire skulls that sit on the actual dial. Now it does have 14 layers of blued air coating, so you're gonna see every facet of that. Now, what are facets? Facets are like on a diamond, right? When you go buy your girlfriend an engagement ring and you want to propose to her and you're like, hey, I'm gonna buy that 1 carat Leo diamond and that thing shines everywhere. Well, those are the facets cut into the diamond to make the inside of the diamond shine, similar to this sapphire skull. Now this thing has, again, 160 facets, 200 edges, which means this isn't just a flat piece of sapphire crystal. This is 3D carved so that you get a brilliant shine from that skull. And again, around the outside is Swiss lume, so it is brilliant. And they went even further so that on the movement itself, within the eyes, is a ruby to match that movement ruby on the other side. Honestly, it's like staring into death when looking in this skull. Amazing. Okay, now a further deep dive into the watch. Let's talk about the movement, because we're talking about a watch right now that, you know, I was going to talk turkey at the very end, is around $13,000. Now you may say, Chase, $13,000? Well, that seems like a lot of money. Well, yeah, it is. But for a Swiss tourbillon, and this Swiss tourbillon specifically was designed from the ground up for Aventi. Now this thing was designed with the collaboration of Oliver Maury. Now, Oliver Maury started out his career designing the tourbillon for the Richard Mille. So they went right to the source and said, hey, we want you to help us create a Swiss tourbillon to put in our sapphire watch. Now, talking to Aventi themselves, they are actually going to be using the Swiss tourbillon moving forward. So all their movements moving forward is no longer going to be Hong Kong movements. They're going to be Swiss movements in their iterations of watches moving forward. So the A10 and the A11s will always have Hong Kong movements, but moving forward as they get into different types of watches, different generations of watches, they're all going to be Swiss tourbillons. And these tourbillons are in no way cheapened out. In fact, when I was talking to Aventi, they use tourbillons that are not overly complicated. And with the non-overly complicated tourbillons, basically what they did was they designed something you could wear every single day. Now, a lot of people know that mechanical watches can easily be damaged, even if you just sling your wrist around. Well, these tourbillons have a shock resistance rating of 5,000 Gs, with over 2,000 gauss of magnetic resistance. Now these things are more than chronometer accurate at plus to minus 4 seconds a day, which is extremely accurate. Now this Entire thing is housed in a grade 5 titanium movement housing, and this thing is coated and it's pearlaged, and this thing just looks amazing. Honestly, again, they didn't cheapen out at all when they were designing this watch. Okay, so now you guys know exactly what the watch is. This watch, the A13 Sapphire Skull, is housed in a titanium case. You can either get a polished titanium case or you can get a titanium case that's covered in Tyamine, which just gives it that cool, stealthy look. Sandwiched between two sapphire crystals. Inside, sapphire hands, sapphire skull. The sapphire skull is three-dimensional at 2.3 millimeters, 160 facets, 200 edges. Awesome loom around the entire thing. Ruby red eyes, a movement that is designed specifically for them, and that thing is just really off the hook. I'm excited to one day own one of these, because I will buy one of these watches because they just did everything right. At a price point that ranges from $13,000 to $14,000. Now, you could say to yourself, you know, $13,000, well, that's a lot of money. Yeah, but right now, a Rolex Submariner, if you can't get it at retail, which you can't get it at retail to authorized dealer, goes for about $18,000 right now for a basic dive watch. Yes, it does say Rolex, but a basic dive watch that has nothing really unique about it. We're talking about a Swiss Tourbillon with a unique sapphire skull, and the only watch that is similar in the price point, in the range of the design, to include the person who collaborated in the design of the Tourbillon movement, is a Richard Mille RM052 that is over $500,000. So you think to yourself, well, $13,000 really isn't that bad to get a watch that is a heavy hitter of watches that are far, far priced, over 10 times what this value is on this watch. Honestly, they could sell it for a lot more, and they could easily justify it, but they're not. Now, what's the caveat in getting the Aventi A13 Sapphire Skull? Well, they're honest with you. They say, hey, if you want our Sapphire Skull, you have to have a purchase history with us. We have to approve the sale of this watch. They want to keep their things limited, which I completely 100% agree. Why should a person be able to come in and buy a Sapphire Skull watch, something they designed, they put their blood, sweat, and tears in to create this unique timepiece for an awesome price, and they have the right to tell the market exactly what they're going to release and how they're going to respond to people asking about inquiries on their watches. So, as far as I know, you have to have a purchase history with them. Now, it doesn't say that you have to have a purchase history of a sapphire cased watch. You don't have to have the A11. You could have an A10. You could have a good relationship with them. Their entire goal is not just to create an awesome watch, but create a family behind their brand and product, which I think is pretty awesome, right? So you have to have a purchase history with them, and you have to be approved on whether or not you can buy the watch. Now, some people would disagree with that. Well, it's their business. They can do whatever they want. I don't disagree with it at all. I own 2 of their watches, and I look forward to purchasing more watches in the future because I know what they're doing. I know the cool things that they're doing. They're going out of their way to create some pretty unique products, use some pretty unique materials, and honestly, I think that the prices that they're asking for are far more than reasonable for what they're offering you guys. Now, for the first time, they raised their prices on the website, I want to say about 6 months ago, but it wasn't even that bad. It was like a few $100, right? And that's just because, you know, right now, everything's sort of spiking up, inflation's spiking up, you know, it's harder to get materials in the market. I don't blame them at all. In fact, I think that their watches are still currently undervalued. Now, again, do I want an A13 in the future? Absolutely. I don't care if it's the high polished titanium or the Tyamine. Like, I think they both look awesome. I'm excited for the things that they're coming out with in the future because I know that when it comes to producing watches, I know that Aventi is not, hey, I'm looking at this one thing. They're probably 2, 3, even 5 years in the future with designing unique materials and watches. So you guys really need to make sure that you're keeping an eye on Aventi, and honestly, take a look at their website. I'll leave it down below. In no way am I affiliated with Aventi. In no way have they paid me to do anything. In fact, I have paid full price for every single one of my watches. I just love the company. I love what they're doing, and this is just my 2 cents. They're using a lot of unique materials. They're doing some pretty cool things, and I just love the brand for what they're doing. Now, if you like videos like this, hit that subscribe button down below. Leave a comment on the content you guys would like to see on this channel. I have watches like that Cartier in the background, that ladies tank. I will be reviewing next week. I also have other watches on my desk here to review. I also have other things like dive tanks and dive equipment coming up in the future. This is all things random, mostly watches plus random things sprinkled in. And I just bought a brand new car. I will be doing a video on that. That thing is 485 horsepower of American muscle, and I will do a video on that real soon. Make sure you guys are hitting that notification bell so you can be notified when I drop that next video. Until next time.